if right-wingers had it their way, they would pass laws allowing them to kill any person of the LGBTQ community or put them in jail for life, just like in various other nations where they have similar laws against the LGBTQ community.
More than 500 bills restricting the rights of LGBTQ plus people have been introduced across the country this year. 77 of those bills have been passed, impacting education and healthcare. Anne Marie breaks this all down for us.
Yeah, in fact, Vlad, this is sort of a bit of a snapshot of all the states that have passed anti-LGBTQ laws, but we're going to highlight a few of them that have really made kind of national headlines. And I'll start things off in Tennessee. So Tennessee has so far passed 5 anti-LGBTQ laws this year, including the first in the nation attempt to ban drag performances. Now, the law received, in public that is, the law received some criticism for its vagueness. And it was ultimately ruled unconstitutional by...
Yeah, it was ruled unconstitutional. Yeah, because it was vague, and you really can't ban people for wearing clothing just because you consider it to be the opposite sex. There's a few other laws similar that got struck down. We just need to strike down all these anti-LGBTQ laws because they're all unconstitutional as they target a single group.
by a federal judge. Now we're going to take you up north to North Dakota right here. North Dakota has passed 10 anti-LGBTQ laws, one of the highest amounts in the nation. They passed restrictions on health care and identification, but one aspect that has drawn attention involves public libraries. North Dakota's legislature has prohibited public libraries from maintaining sexually explicit material. This
Laws like these are being used to remove the Bible from schools and stuff, which is hilarious because the Bible is one of the most sexually explicit books you can read, and right wingers want all kids to be forced to read the Bible.
takes the book ban initiatives targeting queer and racial content and codifies it. And then down to Florida now. Of course, Ron DeSantis making a lot of headlines because of his anti-LGBTQ rhetoric, but the state passed a law banning gender-affirming care for minors. And here's what it includes. It discourages acts of social transitioning, like using different pronouns.
While allows the state to take custody of child if care is sought. So the same people that claim the left wing is trying to take your kids are taking people's kids. It's pretty wild how everything that right wingers claim the left wing is doing or wants to do is what they're doing or want to do themselves. Huh. It shows how much the right wing loves to project. I mean, how can they be the party of freedom and stuff when they're passing so many laws against people? And this is also the same group of people that claim that laws don't work because criminals don't follow the law. So why pass a bunch of laws if these criminals aren't going to follow them?
But it also makes seeking gender-affirming care a condition for Child Protective Services to take a minor away from their parents. It's currently making its way through legal challenges, Vlad.
For more on this, let's bring in Paula C. Johnson. She's a law professor at Syracuse University's College of Law. So how many of these laws have actually been implemented versus struck down or held up by legal challenges?
Well, good morning. Many of the laws are still being considered by legislatures as well as by the courts. So while a number of them have passed in the state legislatures, they are still being challenged and are making their way through state and federal court systems. So we're not able to say at this moment, for instance, what the final analysis will be on these provisions, but they are all being contested.
So, I mean, I think many people are probably wondering, why are there so many laws now? Why are things so active when it comes to anti-LGBT anti-LGBTQ legislation. What's causing this shift?
Well, some of it, of course, is the way in which the country is very polarized on social matters. And we're seeing the proliferation of these laws that is reflecting that. And what is characterizing it is, in particular, a way in which a particularly vulnerable population is now in some ways being scapegoated for some of the other ills that are afflicting the country.
Yeah, right wingers do this all the time. They always want to target some minority group or marginalized group that they hate, pass bunch of laws against them, or try to, and blame them for the problems with society. Before it was trans people, it was gay people. Before gay people, it was black people. Before black people, it was hippies and women and so on. It's all the same phrases and or phrasing and just different targets every decade or so. It's these people have nothing but their own delusions and paranoia. So once they realize that they can't target a group anymore, they have to find a new group to target.
A vulnerable population, but also a very resilient one. And so we are simply seeing that this is taking hold as part of the stratification of the country on these social issues.
Transgender individuals, as you know, have been the target for a large portion of these laws. What are some of the new restrictions, and how have activist groups responded?
Well, as you mentioned in your introductory part to this discussion, some of the laws are restricting things like quote unquote drag shows, and a number of restrictions having to do with very serious matters with respect to people's health. I mean, with respect to their actual health, transgender youth, and the accessibility to gender-affirming care. And this is to say, irrespective of parents and physicians' determinations that these things are necessary for the well-being of the child. So these types of matters are being taken out of the hands of parents and medical professionals and into the hands of legislators and politicians.
Even though right wingers always claim that they want parents to have like ultimate rights over their kids and they get to, make make the, final say about anything. And now they want to take away parents' rights over their kids if their kids are trans. Pretty funny.
Who have deigned themselves to be in a better position to make these decisions about life affirming care, and in fact, care that will save the lives of many youth needing this medical care.
Though it's not like right wingers care about the life of another person, and unless it personally affects them in some way. Because right wingers, they don't have like any empathy or compassion for other people, unless again it personally affects them. That's why you got a lot of Republicans that are now in support of the LGBTQ community after finding out that their son or family member is gay. It's like, what, dude, you couldn't have compassion for these people before that, but now that your son or daughter may be personally affected by laws you want to pass, you're going to be in support? Yeah.
We're also seeing matters that are restricting First Amendment rights having to do with situations in the public libraries, as you mentioned, and what kinds of materials will be accessible in the libraries. And so there is quite a
Yeah, and with book banning, again, right wingers claim to be the party of freedom, yet they want to ban people from being able to read books. That's not what a party based upon freedoms does. That's what a party based upon fascism does.
An extensive degree and type of laws that would seek to restrict those types of issues that pertain particularly to the LGBTQ plus communities and access to information and access to care.
Professor, when I asked you about why are we seeing sort of a ramping up right now, you said that some of these groups are being used as scapegoats instead of addressing sort of other problems, and sometimes it certainly feels like.
Yeah, well, it's easier for the right wing to blame some other group for the problems that they're causing than to actually address the problems that they're causing, because there's certain uh, people in the right wing that benefit more from these kinds of laws and behaviors, and they want to keep the status quo, keeping themselves in power.
These are solutions in search of a problem. I don't think in Tennessee there are drag shows on every corner. So was a law like this actually necessary? What did you mean by they're being used as scapegoats?
Well, I mean, because there are
More people die from right wing extremists than they do from people dressing in drag.
so many serious issues that our country needs to address, and these are not, from my perspective, the most serious matters that we need to contend with in our country. As you mentioned, for instance, these seem to be problems in search of a solution, or solutions in search of a problem. The drag shows, for instance, these were never events that were designed for young children, and even to the extent that they are expressive and artistic in nature, they don't only.
I mean, you can say almost anything isn't for children if you want to try to define it as like being evil or too sexual or something. I mean, look at not Buffalo Wild Wings, but Hooters. How many right-wing men take their kids to Hooters? That is pretty sexual. I mean, they're wearing short shorts. They, wear their shirts so their cleavage sticks out a whole lot. Should we ban Hooters from existing and ban people from being able to go to Hooters? And if you take your kids to Hooters, should you have your kids taken away from you and be put in, prison for 10 years? Come on.
Pertain to the LGBTQ community either. I mean, think of, for instance, comedians who have performed in what we might say, broadly speaking, was drag, because there were men or male comedians who might dress as female characters. Think of.
Yeah, like the movie Mrs. Doubtfire. Uh, and nowadays, right wingers would have Robin Williams arrested for dressing up as a woman. Or what about Two White Chicks, where it was the Wayne's brother dressing up as two white chicks? They would be arrested by right wingers for spreading transism and stuff.
Of Shakespearean plays, think of Greek plays. These things have long histories in terms of being represented as a cross-gender type of expression, and so there's really no way in which we can say that these have been problematic aspects within our society. And in fact, if we look at it in a broad sense, we've seen that across.
I mean, look at some of the cartoons people grew up watching. I mean, I grew up watching Looney Tunes. Bugs Bunny occasionally would dress up as a lady. That didn't make me want to be like, oh, this cartoon rabbit dresses up as a lady? I want to be a lady. Like, no, it doesn't work that way. People who already know they're in the wrong body will have thoughts like, yeah, I like the way they look dressed up as a lady, even though they're a boy or whatever, or, vice versa. That's how I feel about myself. It's watching somebody express themselves or be who they are doesn't make everybody, change themselves. Those who already relate will relate even more.
Performances across all types of artistic expressions, that they have had wide acceptance throughout the community and the society.